Welcome to the Mount Vernon School of Art Summer Lecture Series hosted here in the Pennsylvania Chautauqua's Hall of Philosophy. We're coming towards the end of our summer here with a big event, the legendary Stanley Lewis. I know he didn't want me to say anything like that, but it's true. Great teacher. I just want to thank Stinson Strout for his support of the lecture series, along with Purpose One. For anyone that's new or likes to hear me say it every time, Mount Gretna School of Art is a 7-week summer intensive program where we really try to live up to that with students working all day, every day on painting and drawing in a very rigorous setting. We've got about 12 instructors and critics that come through each summer, which we're very happy the symbiotic relationship with the Pennsylvania Chautauqua's summer programs cultural series, which we are a presenter with our lectures each summer. Stanley Lewis has been the lead painting and teacher at the end. He's my closer. Rachel Rickert was my opener. Very happy to have him here. So just a little bit about Stanley, who was born in Somerville, New Jersey on October 31st, 1941. He graduated from Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut, and with a joint major in music and art. His painting teacher was John Fraser. He graduated with high distinction. He studied with William Bailey and Bernie Chait at the Yale Summer School of Art and Music, received a Danforth Fellowship, and received an MFA from Yale in 1967. His main teachers there were Leland, who he's going to talk about today, and Nick Caroni. He began teaching at the Kansas City Art Institute in 1969 and worked with Wilbur Newald, who he talks about all the time too. He joined the Bowery Gallery in 1986. Stanley taught at Smith College, American University, and the Chautauqua Institution School of Art, and the New York Studio School. I'm going to turn it over to him. Thank you.
Okay. So I want to say something about this. The way I got the idea for this lecture was I had these two pictures sitting around and I just saw them together. And I knew Jay, I'd have to give a lecture. So I said, no, I'll do this, not knowing that I couldn't really talk about Derain. Derain is has many different ways of working, and nobody can really understand how to think about it. But Leland Bell talked constantly about Derain and always showed us photographs that talked about him. Then Tim King sent me this catalog, this small watercolors about this. It's like a story on wine, it's like a Le Génie de Vin, you know what I mean? It's one of these French editions. So he did watercolors for it. But the pictures are shockingly far out. They're exciting, very abstract. And I'm trying to figure this stuff out. So I saw that Leland's, one of their ends that's in here, that's the one I have up there, that's less, you can see what's going on more easily. And somehow I thought that this did link the Leland and Derain in terms of the flow on the left going like up, and the flow on the roll on the top of the Derain that probably, said, maybe this could be something. But then I never looked at them again. I looked at them just because I knew I was going to give this lecture, but I have not tried to figure it out or draw from them. So today I want to do this too. But then I realized I got to show you who these people are. So now I'm going to start on talking about Leland. So the main story of the teachers behind me and the teachers behind them, I may be starting in turn of the century and earlier. This is Leland's, he did abstract paintings based on the paintings he was looking at in the 40s. And this is to show you that the idea was, and he looked at Élian, and I have a couple Élian slides, And the model is that from Mondrian up, there was a development of abstraction. And then around the time of the Second World War, there was a shift and artists began to move back to or depicting life. And as if abstraction had sort of run its course or didn't have enough to, and Leland said these very things. He said, abstraction is no longer going to help me deal with life, considering this Hitler business. I have a quote of his that says that. Then Leland was influenced really a lot by Giacometti and Leland. So this is his first, one of his first. I have reproductions of about 4 of these. And they're also very much like Arp and Arp's wife, Sonia Tauber Arp. And so now it's sort of like a little development of Leland, but the next slide is an Leland. He was looking at, these are Leland abstract paintings. This was Leland's main, he loved Leland. Actually, a lot of people in this room love Leland. And he had developed this very austere kind of abstraction that when I first looked at it, I didn't know what to make of it. And it's still so removed from the way I am as a person that I'm just the same as I was when he first talked about it. But I have studied these pictures, and the way you start to understand, if you see this picture in the museum, and I think there's a painting just like this in Chicago, is the forms are definitely shifting their position. So it's about things in space. It's a steady idea from that abstract painting done in the 30s through, this was done in probably 1960s. This is huge. These huge murals. I was hoping that somebody out there, the painters, mostly I'm thinking about, are going to say, oh my God, this is an amazing picture. What am I going to do about this? And that's how I felt. So you can see why everybody was overwhelmed by Leland, because even though it's absolutely not the way I draw, not the way I think, this is all done from invention. He's not working from nature. Anyway, he's just a phenomenon. And the other thing about it is, and this is what Leland talked about, he said, I want to bring painting back to what's really happening around us. So you can see it's the pissoir of Paris. I mean, that is so cool to paint that. Just the idea, somebody's going to paint that. And he would paint people coming out of the subways. And it gives young artists their subject matter in places I didn't know there was subject matter. And I think this is one of his great pictures. Okay, so I think that's all I have of Leland. But I wanted to show you. So this is Leland in transition from, of course, I'm making this I'm choosing like 5 slides for a whole career. It's impossible, but you still get something. This is part of the idea of him saying, I've got to get back to looking. So he's really looking at his head. So that is really directly related to us, because we're looking and painting. And he was clearly influenced by Giacometti. So there's a printout, right? So the first paragraph of the printout talks about this painting. So let's read it.
There have been many self-portraits in the past 50 years, but for me, there is none with the persistent fascination of the one Derain did in 1953, a year before he died. It exists in a state of buoyancy. Nothing is forced or exaggerated. A cheekbone, an earlobe, the smallest element of wrinkle. Derain sustains an unflagging love for each part. There is virtuosity without self-interest. Virtuosity conquered. Everything follows through. Every detail is relevant to the whole.
I look at that great little loop on the right side. Okay, now let's see what Leland's next self-portraits. This is like, farther on in the development of, and one thing I noticed about this that is about what we are talking about constantly with each other. And it's so simple. You can see that those lines on the bottom, the one that's part of a erased line, and then that one line on the right, which has something to do with the way the picture is organized. And he looks out at you, that's him. Man, it is so much like him. You almost feel he's talking to you right now. And these pictures, Leland self-portraits are in some ways his greatest achievement. And we had this great lecture. I mean, a knockout killer lecture last week by Jay on Goya. But look at Goya, it's the same look. It's the same expression. I was just shocked by it. And it does say something, but I don't know what. If anybody has any ideas, there's a certain phrases you could use. And then Jay talked about it in terms of where it was in his development. And you can just feel like, and the pieces of the mouth, every subtlety you can imagine, if you made one change, it would change a personality. Try to make a self-portrait. It's impossibly hard. Or make a head of somebody. It's that look that. Now, he talked a lot about Egyptian Fayum portraits. He was really into Fayum portraits, and we'd go to the Met. All you have to do is say Fayum portraits, and it's the riddle solved. And because a Fayum portrait, if you ever see one, are absolutely modern. Absolutely, it's a person literally looking at you, and they're done with wax. They have total involvement with shade and light. They are formed just like Leland's painting, and they are 300 AD, and it wipes out the idea of modernism, of progress, of movements towards truth. Leland's whole idea is that painting is painting, and cave painting is the same as a wall painting, and that it's all this. He's completely he takes away this idea that we're moving towards intelligence and the idea that we are getting smarter. We are not getting smarter. In fact, we all know we're going the opposite direction. So that's what it was like to be with Leland. That's what he was pushing. So now he combined attitudes in a very strange way, not at all the way I would. So he could look, that's his daughter, Tema, who's my age and a little younger and painting all the time. She's an amazing painter. We own a lot of Tema's paintings. She was posing, but then while she was posing, this is what it's hard for us painters to know about. What level of abstraction can we use while we're observing? And when do we observe and when do we form the painting? He really has a unique little place that no one else has grabbed onto. Because it is Tema. I mean, that is her face. But look at the outline and the clarity. So this is a great painting. Okay, next. Then this is this strange thing. It's a pretty large painting. It's not quite as large as that, literally, but it's large. That's Louisa Mathai's daughter, who is his wife. And as I've said many times, a totally great figurative painter. She's fantastic. And I'm very influenced by her and think of her maybe as the person I want to be like the most. And Tema and this guy, Leland had around who he used as a model, and they just, it's not what, see how it doesn't occur to us when we're out there working to be this designed. You know, you'd say, oh, I can't do that. I'm not seeing that. So, somehow he had a particular style. Then he did this group of figurative paintings all through his life, actually, and I just have a series of them. He really would work on them for years, and at the end of his life, there were about 15, maybe. And I had a big experience with this. I was standing in Laurie Bookstein's, where this was being shown. And I went 2 days to the show. First day, I didn't like any of the paintings. It was horrible. I was so depressed. So I went back and I was in a better mood and I kind of opened up. I don't know how that happens. And I saw this one thing. I saw the top of the white cloud, the roll of the white cloud, and then the inside of Leland's arm. And they connected up. And the orange, the tone in the arm, it's obviously Leland, Tema, and Ulla. I'm talking about Leland's arm, this one. So that color, the color in that arm was slightly, it's not showing here, slightly different than the other arm. And it picked up, so my eye went from the white to the inside of the arm. And all of a sudden I looked and saw the whole form, the white and the arm, like a connection, and the painting just went like that. And that's what I'm looking for in painting. I mean, that was it. And I don't know if it might not, but actually it works, because if you look at the whole painting with your eyes spread out, where you're not staring at anything, and then you say to yourself, the arm and the white, the arm and the white, you see an inner rhythm in the back of the painting. It's going like this, while all the other rhythms are going like that. And then you start to see they're picking up that inner rhythm, picking up with that still life down there. Then maybe, then catching on to Ulla's hand, and there rolls up to a whole other series of like up to the butterfly and he really worked this out. I mean, I think that he wanted to figure out how to do it, just like we do. It was hard. He spent years coming up with these, and there's 2 more, I think. And he started to push even farther and I think he's really competing, for me, in my mind, I never read this, with Juan Gris and early Cubists. I mean, this is a far out painting. I think the electricity of it, the excitement of the planes jumping like the orange, that incredible idea of the bird with the orange kind of tilted box, which is really a volume. You can see it. The tip of the orange with the line of Leland's coat, but it exists, like boom, like the side of a thing with a string thing. So he breaks through the problem of representation and volumes, because we're all trying to figure that out. Where do we construct and where do we go after appearances? Derain's word was appearances that he used. Yay, Leland really came through on this. I think it's a big achievement. It's too big here. You don't want it to be this big. So don't worry, it's only about this big, because it's even better when it's there. Okay. So this is the one we're going to draw. See how you can see how he has the same ideas. He has this. Now, this is where I'll bring in Lester Young. Leland talked constantly about Derain and Lester Young. I played the saxophone, and I went up to the studio a few times. I went up and he said, who's your favorite saxophone player? And Oh man, I knew I was on the spot and I said, Stan Getz. And he just couldn't look. He was so pissed and annoyed. It's Lester Young. Lester Leaps In, the name of the song. He wrote it. Yeah, isn't that great? That does seem to me Leland, like Leland. So he talks about Lester Young, listening to Lester Young, and always it seems Lester Young is sort of some sacred thing, because I'm so impressionable, and it's remained that way. So here's the way I think about how a jazz solo relates to how the two relate. Lester Young, as opposed to you have to see it in context with the other saxophone playing styles. One of the styles in saxophone playing is to have a more fluid running 16th notes. That's the other. But what Lester does is he builds these blocks. They're like, and he was the first guy that did that. I think somehow that's in Leland's paintings, but when he talked about Lester Young, it was like you were in some sacred land. And if all the people know Leland say the same thing. And in his show, a recent show at the studio school, they had a painting he did, Lester Young's. You know, one thing about this painting, I just noticed when I sat down at the beginning, this is the kind of thing that we're always trying to, one person wants to say to another person. Look at the right hand, look, the far right-hand corner, our right hand, how that round form that comes from the green, mysterious green dark that's next to the green. The color shifts, aren't they wonderful? How it flows down and takes on its own life at the end, just like that's what I was trying to talk about yesterday, you guys. How that could go. It's not part of the picture, really. It just. This is the painting he gave me. This is how he gave it to me. I put a show on for him and Leland because I had this job in Hartford to put exhibitions on. I was in graduate school. So he comes down, you know, from his house. I knock on the door or something, and he just hands me this picture, like, okay, you know, don't bother me, but here's your picture. So that's it. And I wanted to tell you what he did, which I thought was so cool, is he always made his announcements photographs, gray, black and white photographs about this size. That was the way he did his announcements. Then he would paint on them. So this is painted on one of his announcements. Now the Derain side. Leland and Derain. Now, Derain was not so crazy about the faux period. He was always trying to say, that's not the period I'm interested in. But everybody is interested in the faux period, and I am. And Chico and I were having a great talk about it. I mean, so wait till you see these wild paintings. Derain is very hard to sum up or make. So anyway, here are the pictures. Now, I love this picture. I can't believe it. There is so much going on. I mean, you could study this picture forever, but isn't it? I just saw it for the first time. I've never seen it up like this. See the little figure down on the lower. Where is that figure? It's how it hits against the. Isn't the light? It's the most spring-like painting I've ever seen. And this was like 1906. So this was the beginning of Fauvism when he and Matisse and he is the creator of Fauvism. Matisse was following him. I think this is in London. The feeling you get from Derain's paintings and from these is something about a weighty concept of objects in space that you see, and then how he organizes them in a heavy way. So you'd say, well, how is this picture opening up? It seems too heavy. But I just noticed that if you go up in the middle of the painting, right in the middle is the red of the section of the holding the bridge up. You go up to that, but then you're hitting a little bump and a little piece of blue, and then the building behind, they're linking up. So the bridge is basically linking up with the far side of the river at the middle on one level. So when you try to think about the space going from the middle to the next three sections, I think that there's this kind of thing happening. On one level, the bridge is going like this in parallel to the buildings on the other side of the river, but it actually has to go three more in. That's where the tension in the space is. So let's say you start looking at the painting at that bump.
The biggest red bump.
Yeah, the biggest red bump, and then above it. That's the little piece of yellowish stuff right on the top. Right in the middle and the top. You then have to conceive of going back in space from there. And your mind doesn't want to do that. So work on that part of the bridge. Like you think back, that's going back, that's going back. So you turn it in your mind. When you do that, this barge on the bottom starts really flying down, and you see that you're down here. Because if you try to look at the bridge as it's turning over and the barge on the bottom at the same time, you start to see what he saw. That's key. That's a big thing. But the painting doesn't necessarily look good, because if you see it flattened, it'll look dead, and you'll say, oh, this is not any good. You have to work to open the pictures up. This painting, I mean, the energy and the enthusiasm in space, and also where it is. It's not always life. It doesn't. Things are like this in France. You know. Then there's another one. Now this painting was in a big focus and show. The reason I'm interested in it so much, I think it shows so many things. It shows that he had a kind of an Oriental, interest. He was pulling. He isn't like other painters. He's pulling from different parts of the world, really. But this painting hung in a prominent place in a large show at the Museum of Modern Art of Fauvism, and it was clearly the greatest painting in the show. I mean, it knocked everybody out. You might not get it from this because you might be sort of turned off by the snakes and so on, but what does this mean? So all I can suggest is that we've got to paint, we've got to be open to not just looking out. We got to make some wacky paintings, you guys. All right. So then he started to be more analytical. And so this is an example of one that I really, really am interested in. And there was one in Metropolitan Museum where the table going straight up like this. I would say that in every painting that you see of him, there is a kind of a crucial place that has to be thought of differently so the painting can unravel. Does anybody want to try this one? Because I think someone could talk us into understanding this painting. I think there's like a mystery of the forms in this that we could.
I go.
Yeah.
It might be a concept you talked about yesterday, but it seems like the painting breaks down on parallel vertical lines of the tape. Instead of proceeding back, it moves up in space.
Definitely. I've thought that thought too, and then I don't know, I never know where to go next. That's the problem, I think. So we move up both sides, and we get to the two pieces of the bread. The bread seems to be trying to hold the white drape down, and the white drape doesn't want to go down. But you know, I noticed right above the bread, there's a shift in the wall. I wonder if I see the wall at the top as bending, like the side of a room, that gives me more room to get the white to sit down. That if I was drawing this, or we were looking at this together, that's how I do it. I would get some idea, and we'd all have different ones that would give, first the picture would look impossible, and there would be a sense of, this is wrong. And then little clues in the picture release that tension. And you start to see how you can move and change your point of view, and you feel excited. As soon as you find one of these things, it's like, wow, but they don't last too long. You know, you have to keep, or they might go away, or. But I think being able to name the tension is important. Like I'm interested in how much clarity he made at the cup that's holding the peaches, let's say the peaches, how the shadows and the distances around the peaches are saying we're looking over the peaches into that far white thing. But as soon as I do that, I'm thrown up by the white going. Every picture you look at his, you can find these kinds of things. And in the article that Leland wrote about Derain that I gave to everybody, read it. It's hard to read. Some paragraphs say these kinds of things, that there's so much you can get if you keep going into the painting, so something like that. So when I was in graduate school, I guess I saw this reproductionist. I don't think I've ever seen it. And I love the title, Saturday Morning. And this was a period where people had criticized, I don't care about what they all said, but I love this painting, and I love it for some reason. And it is related. I think Leland paintings are definitely related to this, because this is the family around the table. Not that he painted it the way Derain did, but it does connect with that. But this is a painting you could definitely study. And it's the same issue, right? And there's a whole room back there of the red, where the red. And look how he defines the bowl, the hands and the bowl. And the girl on top, the way she's looking, how did he get her eyes so they just look out at you, at me, really? And what's she saying? She's the only person who's looking at us. And it's like an electric message coming out. It gets me. The other two women are sort of like, you don't want to look at them. They're not interested. And I have noticed that when you're painting faces, if the face looks out at you, the picture plane, it attacks the whole space of the painting. So the thing is, what Leland taught, what I got from Leland is, and this is what I'm going to pass on to you because I want you to be the same, is that we need to invent pictures, and we need to have a story that we're trying to paint along with the other work we do. And it's sort of private. It can be private. the idea is you have two worlds going. You have the world where you're looking out, trying to figure out how to deal with what you see. I'm best at that. But I also have a world where I'm going to try to make a painting like an alien or like Leland. They're not good. I don't show them. They're terrible, actually. But you keep in touch with painting. You sort of feel like you know, like I can relate to this painting because I'm trying something like it. So that's what I want you guys to do in your life. Now, watch this. This is a Derain drawing that, but now wait, you see the next one. By the way, this is a Ken Cooley section here. You're going to say, how am I supposed to sketch the Derain? I'm sitting here, I don't want to sketch the Derain, but that's how to do it. You just make marks, you know. Now, wait till you see this, the next one. Whoa, look at that. Now, we were all trying to kind of be a part of an art world that didn't have a time to it, that was connected with tradition and our lives as it goes. And I'm happy. I think we got a new thing going. That's what I'm saying. Maybe we got a new thing going of this, you know, the next generation. And we're starting to cook on, and we're good. And I'm feeling good about it. You know, we're building a new thing against all the stuff that's in the rich people's houses, which is so horrible. But we're holding on and we're building. I got another Ken Cooley here for you. That's a Derain. Not a Derain that anybody would be that interested in. I don't think I wouldn't spend too much time looking at that. But look what Ken did with it. That's how you're supposed to draw it. Okay, that's one lesson. Oh, God. That is just remarkable. It's better than the Derain. Look at that square cut out. Okay, now next. The thing about Derain is his level of, you know, taking what he sees and reconstructing it. We got to learn how to do that and have the courage to do it. And it's impossible to understand how to do it, especially if you're out there looking. I do understand that, but there's these levels. I find this actually just an amazing to look at, but I don't think I understand it or how I would ever approach it. Now, there's another one, just to give you an idea. Derain is too big. Now, but there's one more painting that I can relate to. So I think it's the next one. Oh, I know what Leland said about this. He said, look at how the little buildings are like a necklace. And the idea that you have all this space and it seems to me like it's not the kind of space, it's more spaces than we have. I always thought, and this painting is, how many levels are there? And I think, you know, I try to get 3 levels. I think he gets 5 levels. I don't know exactly what that means, but like the tiny buildings in the middle of the painting are so tiny next to this big jagged rock thing. And actually, this is exactly like that Van Gogh, that one section, right? So this is a kind of painting you think in a way, oh, something is too massive about it. No, it doesn't open up. It's not a free, no, I don't like this. Then you start to let yourself breathe into it. So this one, I was in the show we saw of Derain. We went to Paris to see this incredible show, Giacometti, Derain, and Balthus. So I really drew from this. I really stood there and I felt like I was looking at the scene, and this was definitely an outdoor painting. I mean, some of the construction is too powerful in the other paintings. You think he couldn't have done this outside, But this he did do outside. And I was so struck by how much work I had to do to all the rocks on the left. I can't do that. All those rocks. And I kept working on it the first, and I did it about an hour and a half or so. Then I said, oh, I've got the other rocks to do. And then you sort of realize the rocks that are coming in on the lower part aren't the same type of rocks as the other. And there's a certain place where you realize there's this strange scale shift over on the left. Then I got up to the middle and I said, oh man, I've got so much more to do. And I couldn't figure out what that plane was of the roof, which is exactly like farmed in crops are in there, right above that beautiful. See, now this is the other thing that Leland would say. Imagine in your mind, what is the color of that middle swath of grass area? Or, the middle light tone, what color is that? Leland talked about that constantly, so the tones, the weight of the tone, he would say, the weight of the tone. And it instead of just describing it, kind of goes, it's throb, each color has the kind of intensity. So you go above the farm field, then there's this long brown thing. I don't know what it is. It's a long roof. And I realized, oh my God, I'm gonna have to work on an enormous number of streets going back. And then all the buildings are defined. So he really painted each building, the sides and the tops. He didn't do like what we do. It's like, well, I'll just go da 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 da. I'll just sketch that in. No, you work it out. And it isn't like he was painting there all for 3 years either. He somehow worked all the village rooftops out. And you work back and into that beautiful church. I was really into this one. I never really got the thing on the left. See how those trees are going up in this weird way? They're like sculptures sticking up and they have their own rhythm and they have a kind of a harsh aggressiveness. So that's fighting the soft part. That's that Derain thing coming back. It's so complicated. The different aspects of his personality. And how now I'm getting back to the rocks, the personality in the rocks and those little clumps of green. We all see this stuff, but how do you use it so it's pieces? In the article, he talks about Giacometti, the precision of points in space. And it's a beautiful passage. So you definitely want to look through the whole article to get to that. Okay. This kind of painting is, absolutely breathtaking. Late Derain. No, I don't think people see this painting. I don't know. Really unbelievably complex in terms of what's far and what's near. Look how you look down over on the right and you're already at the tunnel. But then over here, this strange bending thing. This was definitely observed. So he's out there painting and he's able to build the painting. Anyway, I feel this one and I have the feeling you do too. It's better than those de Koonings. I mean, those de Koonings that are all yellow, see, the museums wouldn't see that. That shape on the right, what is that? There's a lot to this one. Okay, well, this is one of Derain, and this is a great masterpiece. I've tried to understand this painting. I've drawn it and never really been able to. I love working on it. And then there's this. The next painting. I think it should be the master. This was taken from a book. This incredible copy of a Bruegel done 2 years before he died, and just the idea that he was so in love with painting that he would so carefully render everything in the painting, but he did it with his way. And shows the idea that we must keep going back to the great painters and copying. If you don't know what you're to do and you're depressed, copy, because it wakes you up and it makes you happy and excited in literally in 20 minutes. You find one form, you say, oh my God, this is why I wanted to be a painter. Still life, Chico loves these, and we already had a great conversation about this Leland talk, and it's in the article. So this whole life of him inventing, I mean, when you look at a book on Derain, you'll see that he did these things like that wine. He was doing tapestries. He was doing sets for plays. There was the artists were involved with all these extracurricular things where you would invent figures. So this is when you're in Paris and there are those two museums, Jeu de Paume and Marmottan. Right? It's one here, and then you go you go over to the other one, and you have a great day. You see his ideas, his love of medieval art. We would have to spend a long time to sort of figure out what his idea is here. We almost could. Are you getting a little interested in that figure in the back, hidden by the trees, reaching forward? That's going back. Then notice I'm interested in this. Notice the figures are in every position at once, kind of. But could you imagine if, for all of us, we work towards our own invented masterpiece that we have at the end of our lives? You guys, we can do it. We have to do it. You have to do it. You can't just work from nature. I think that might be it. Let's see what's that next. Okay, it's drawing time. Okay.
So everybody's gonna draw for 10 minutes and then we'll have a Q&A.
Thank you for the lecture, Stanley. I was really responding to what Catherine was saying about how all the shapes together like really can inject more life into a painting, like how each shape feels alive. And I was maybe wondering, first question is a dead shape. When is the shape dead?
You sense when they're dead, when you're painting, and then you try to make them. I mean, just the word alive is we've been talking about that. That's good. Just to make your painting alive. Basically, that's the job. And then when you're looking at paintings like this, you sense how alive they are, and then you look at your own paintings and say, all the time, I mean, almost all the time, you say, this part is sort of dead, and this part's alive. I mean, that's pretty basic, right? And true. I mean, everybody sees it. The problem, one of the problems is, a huge problem for our politics is that photographs and digital photography looks alive on one level, but in a sense is not anything to do with this. So we're drifted over into the digital world of images. And what I think all the people here, all the teachers here, Jay's mission is to try to claw back this other kind of world where shapes are, but the fact that you have to actually make marks on your page in time. You start with nothing, and then pictures are the key. That's key to me, but more questions, yeah.
It seems a lot of times we look
at the picture, but it seems like we're looking over these pictures or looking down on them because the pictures are looking up at us.
Now that's, I'd almost say a brilliant remark. Who made that brilliant remark? But that's smart. Because I think that's right. And that's totally right. Is that you're kind of starting with your mind. You're here, you're inside your head. And painting is something about going out, and the pictures coming in, and there's ups and downs. Looking down, looking up, just what you said, like a wonderful figure flying up in the air. Isn't that great? I mean, what? I think you must have thought of that, right? I haven't really looked, So what are you saying? Tell us what you think about that figure?
Well, like I say, it seems like 2 weeks ago, the painter who was here was telling about the angle. And it was a different angle that he looked at it. But this is like what we're looking at. We're looking over these people, so our pictures, and that they're looking up at us. They're kind of trying to connect with at our level.
That is it. That is the main problem in paint is your picture's here, if you're having easel. And then you're looking, and you look down, and you look up, and the down look and the up look are all sort of somehow included.
Well, I was thinking of the aliveness. When I look down and then I look up and the painting is making me do those things, I am feeling more alive. And I'm thinking about the Steak bather that I once saw, and the bather is lifting out of the bathtub, and she's very alive. Just the color is incredible. And this bathtub that she's pushing her body away from and out and up from is gray and dead. And I felt like the painting was not about some guy liking babies and bathtubs, but about the nature of being alive and us, all of us trying not to be dead. That's
That's a beautiful kind of overview of it.
First, thank you, Stanley. That was fascinating. I was looking at the Bell painting and I was trying to figure out, it looked very poetic to me, and I was looking at the interaction between Leland and his wife, and it looked like they were dancing. I put my arms in his position, and it was like the way you would cradle someone when you're doing a dip in a dance, and then she's looking as though she's also dancing as well. And they lean toward one another, so it's dance life, but they're very closely connected, and then it's of course the daughter is reaching her hand out, it looks to connect with her father, and then the mother's arm and her arm are the same kind of, they're very parallel to one another, same shape as described in the tablecloth. So it all pulls in together and looks to me very alive in movement.
Now, the way the carry on with that, because let's say drawing for half an hour, and you'll start, do a little here, a little there, but you look down at your picture and you notice that it's starting to go like this, and it's what you want pictures to do. And then that rhythm he kept doing all his whole life. It's complicated too. It definitely is a dance. And I think also the bird. The bird is story of the surprise.
Thank you for the lecture, Stanley. That was fantastic. I was wondering, you talked a little bit about how where we're going next in painting and in art. Sometimes I worry and I feel a little lost about where we're going next. So I was wondering if you had any ideas about what you think is happening.
I don't really know but I like it here. And it's amazing that there's all of us, and we're all kind of interested in these things. We're all kind of humble, because you have to be humble in face of the people who are very accomplished more.
There's one more question, Stanley, from the internet. So Stanley, you mentioned that some of what you paint in your studio is private, from your imagination, but can you share whether they are figurative or abstract? Is there a storyline or theme that you're coming back to in this private work?
I have two worlds. A world where I'm trying to invent, and I do that, I figure it out, but I never show it. So I never had to face criticism about them, and most of them have my themes. Just when I'm getting ready for this lecture and I see the Derain sculpture, I'm doing sculpture. Now, one really good artist, Gabriel Adams, said, Stanley, don't take on too much. Don't try to do too many things. It's not a good idea. I just decided just to try all these things, but I'm under pressure, not happy during the day. I don't get enough done. I'm tired, so it's not that much fun. But fun to talk about it. But one of the things I like best is going to museums and drawing. That's what I like.
Thank you.